Over the Garden Wall is a charming, funny animated miniseries about Wirt and Greg, two brothers who get lost in a mysterious place called the Unknown, which is home to all kinds of monsters, talking animals, and an enigmatic villain known only as the Beast, and their long journey to get back home to the real world. It's also a really honest look at how people can be their own worst enemies, ruining their lives because of the way things appear to their distorted view of reality and the real damage that can do to themselves and the people around them. Characters in this show, particularly Wirt, are constantly perceiving problems and threats where there actually aren't any, and in keeping with this, the Unknown and its residents are actually a lot less threatening than they may initially appear. A great deal of the humour in this show stems from an uneasy balance between what appears to be horrific and what is actually pretty innocuous. A rampaging gorilla is just a man stuck in a suit. The residents of Pottsfield, creepy as they are just a group of undead skeletons who enjoy gourds. And Auntie Whispers is not a source of danger, despite her outward appearance, but the more normal seeming Lorna is. Again and again, the show presents us with characters who seem threatening, then pulls the rug out from under us, because the real threat isn't what you might assume. The real threat is the assumption, and the effect that this kind of overly guarded, self-defeating thinking can have. And this idea is nicely illustrated, pun fully intended, by the landscape. This is a show as much about its world as it is about its characters. The Unknown is ambiguously real. Wirt and Greg wind up there after they fall unconscious into a freezing lake where they are drowning for most of the series, and it certainly acts like a construct of the characters' shared imaginations, especially Wirt's. The overarching narrative of the series is about a physical journey as a metaphor for Wirt's emotional journey into maturity and self-confidence, and the show makes excellent and purposeful use of colour to emphasise this point. The Unknown is designed to evoke autumn, beginning with warm golden browns, but then slowly transitioning to a more desaturated colour palette as the season turns to winter, and the world darkens along with the tone, reflecting the raising emotional stakes of the story as the boys slowly drown in the real world over the course of the series. The use of darkness and shadow in particular resonates well with the theme of losing hope. The world reflects Wirt's mental state, so we often see shadow and fog dominate the frame when Wirt is at his lowest emotional points, when things seem the most hopeless. As Wirt feels more lost, it becomes increasingly difficult to make out the details of the background, disorientating us geographically in the same way that Wirt feels emotionally confused. Depression can make the world around you seem distant and kind of hazy, because you get so trapped inside your own head that nothing else feels real, like you're not a part of the world so much as it's just around you, and we often see Wirt's burgeoning hopelessness reinforced by these shadowy vignettes which expand until the screen is almost entirely black, because in these moments, Wirt can't see anything except the darkness. This link between shadow, hopelessness, and confusion is most clearly expressed in the form of the show's antagonist, the Beast. He is constantly shrouded in darkness, and his black outline blending into the shadows of the forest suggests that the shadows that cloud Wirt's mind come from him. The Beast is essentially anthropomorphized suffering, and his influence grows over time until the show's final chapter is almost monochromatic. All the autumnal warmth has been drained away, leaving only the cold white of the snow and the darkness of uncertainty. By the time Wirt meets the Beast, he has been worn down from the days of fear and confusion going on and on, getting darker, murkier, and colder. At this point, it's hard to see an alternative to just giving in to what he wants. Take it from me, the voice in your head that tells you to kill yourself starts to sound reasonable when you hear it every single day for months on end, when you're isolated and confused, and all the people trying to get through to you seem indistinguishable from the fog and the darkness clouding your view of yourself and the world, only making you feel more alone, more lost. The Beast can sound pretty compelling, but he's wrong. Wirt is only free to wake up and save his brother and himself when he recognizes the beast for what he really is, a manipulative liar. The beast can only exist if it keeps you trapped in your own head, tearing yourself apart. So it's only when Wirt recognizes this and learns to appreciate his own value, to challenge his own destructive tendencies, that he can rejoin the real world. Depression is intensely solipsistic, so it makes sense that the vast majority of this show takes place in a fantasy world that may or may not actually exist. Wirt is able to escape the unknown with Greg, just as every other character is able to solve their defining problem as soon as they see it for what it is, as soon as they own up to what they are doing to themselves. I love this show. I love the art, I love the music, I love the benevolent creepiness of it all, but the thing that really spoke to me about it more powerfully now than it did when it first came out was that the beast and the inner darkness he represents works so well as a metaphor for mental illness. I don't know how much that was intended, but when I watch this show, it reminds me that the voice in my head is a liar. I first had the idea for this channel at the tail end of my own depressive episode, which I did mostly pull myself out from, in large part thanks to horror and horror-adjacent media. The reason I make these videos, the reason I spend so much time trying to explore this space of darkness and death and trauma and violence is because it's there. The darkness is a part of me, and I love the way that these shows and movies confront that darkness rather than shying away from it because it's not polite. This show didn't cure my depression, nor did any single piece of media, but for me, horror is a way to take those confusing thought spirals and project them into something outside myself, something that I can look at for what it really is, and then maybe I'll feel better.